nothing compared to the crown of thorns that was pushed onto his head, for those stripes that he took for our healing, for the nails that were drove through his hands and through his feet, for the spear that was stabbed into his side, that we can't understand or even fathom the pain that he went through for you and for me. Who are we this morning that he would be willing to go through all that? Who are we that he would be willing to die a sinner's death, to die a shameful death? You see, it wasn't just the pain that he had to go through physically, but to be crucified was something that was shameful. It was something that they reserved for the worst of the worst people. What had he ever done to deserve that? But love us. And what have we ever done to deserve that kind of love? This morning, the question that I want to ask you is, who are you? 2 years ago, when I first started studying this message, we had been in COVID for almost about 5 or 6 months at this point. We had seen our world turned upside down. We didn't know the things that were going to happen. We didn't know what the government was going to tell us we had to do next. But as we looked around in the days and hours we were living in, I remember not knowing whether Walmart was going to be open tomorrow to go get my groceries. I remember as a pastor, I had to face the tough decision: do I keep my church open or do I shut it down for the safety of the people? I remember coming into church and wearing masks to try to protect each other, to try to ward off this virus, to try to just be there for each other. And I didn't know what was going to happen next. But with working in the jail in that time, with working, having relationships with people that worked still in the emergency room, I found myself looking to the medical side of things a little bit more. And one thing that I noticed during this time was there is an incredible increase in the amount of mental health emergencies that people were dealing with. In fact, doing a little bit of research on it, since COVID first began, the National Mental Health Crisis Hotline that is set up has seen over 1,000% increase in people calling in saying that they're in the middle of a mental health crisis. In the midst of a time where we were facing physical viruses, we were also facing mental viruses that were attacking like never before. There are many different thoughts as to why this is. Psychiatrists have studied it. They've come out and said that many of the reasons for this were people were cut off from each other. They no longer had bonds with one another, that they could go and they could go out and eat with one another, fellowship with one another. Churches were shut down, so they couldn't go to church anymore and be amongst other people to talk to get strength from, to get encouragement from. They were shut up in their homes alone. Have you ever heard that old saying that idle hands are the devil's playground? When we're in the midst of being completely by ourselves, in the midst of silence, in the midst of having nobody else around, the devil knows that's his time to attack harder than ever before. Because we don't have each other to draw strength from. But I ran across another study in this. And that study showed that people started going through what they called midlife crises in that time at an alarming rate. And when they interviewed some of these people, the answer was as to why they felt like they were going through this. They said, well, I just don't know who I am anymore. Why is this? Because in the midst of a national, a global, really, shutdown, as I said, there were stores shutting down, businesses closing, restaurants were closed, churches were closed, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, we're not here to argue whether that was right or wrong. But it happened. And in the midst of that, people said, I don't know who I am. When digging a little bit deeper, they found that people didn't know who they were because they defined themselves by associating themselves with what they do. So remember, the question I'm asking you this morning is, who are you? I've been through enough job interviews in my lifetime that I've had plenty of people look me in the eye and say, tell me who Christopher Anders is. 9 times out of 10, the response is, Christopher Anders is a nurse. Christopher Anders is a pastor. Christopher Anders is a husband and a father. You see, I define myself by the situations that I'm in, by the roles that I carry. So I want to ask you a question this morning, and I'm going to really put you on the spot. I don't know how long I'm really going to preach. This wasn't what I had planned, so we're just going to follow the Lord. So, Brother Rick, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want to answer this morning. Who are you?
I'm a child of the King.
You're a child of the King.
And I'm a prison minister for the Church of God.
You're a prison minister. You see, that's an answer that not everybody can give. The answer of Christopher Anders is a nurse is true. I've got a piece of paper sitting right there in my wallet that'll prove that fact. But you see, tomorrow, that fact may not be true still. Christopher Anders is a pastor. The fact that I'm standing here preaching this message determines that's true. But you see, tomorrow, that statement may no longer be true. Christopher Anders is a husband and a father. My wife and son sitting here determines that that is a true statement. But tomorrow, God forbid, that could change. That may no longer be a true statement. So, church, what I want to ask you is, who are you in the light of something that will not change? You see, the statement, I am Christopher Anders, will not change tomorrow, Brother Rick. It doesn't matter what may come. It doesn't matter the situations in my life. It doesn't matter the job that I may hold in that moment. It will not change the fact that I am Christopher Anders. So who are you that will not change based off your situation? Before we can answer that question, I feel it's important for us to know who Christ is. I'm going to paraphrase some of this for the sake of time, for the sake of getting a point across. We know Jesus Christ was the Son of God. We know Jesus Christ was born of a virgin. He came through an immaculate conception, through means that are physically impossible to recreate. So therefore we know without any shadow of a doubt, He was and is the Son of God. We know that Jesus came, and although He was born in a manger, He had a humble beginning, a humble family, no great palace to grow up in. We know He was the King of Kings and still is the King of Kings today. We know that as Jesus grew into an adult, Jesus performed miracles that no man could perform. That further established the fact that He was the Son of God. We know that Jesus came into Jerusalem and He sent His disciples forth to find a young donkey for Him to ride into town on. We know that the people in that time saw Him as being a glorious human being that rode into Jerusalem worthy of their praise. The Scriptures say they waved palm branches and shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed be the name of the Lord." He was the King of Kings. We know that Jesus went into His friends when Lazarus had died. And through no power known by man. It's one of my favorite accounts in the Bible. Because it did everything that needed to be possibly done to take any glory away from man and put it back on Jesus Christ. You wonder why Lazarus was in the grave for 3 days? It's not a coincidence. It's not just some happenstance that Jesus waited 3 days. In Jewish customs, it was believed that the spirit of someone that died stayed around the body until the face decomposed to a point that it was unrecognizable. Scientifically, the face becomes unrecognizable after the 3rd day of death. According to Jewish custom, the soul, the spirit of Lazarus was gone. That 3rd day meant there was no hope for him to come back. There was no hope that Lazarus was going to return and get up and walk. But we know Jesus came on the scene. We know that Jesus walked up and He said, "Lazarus, come forth." And that dead old body got up and walked out of that grave with the spirit intact of a man that was dead but now lived again. We know all these things. But what did Jesus say about Himself? Jesus said in John the 14th chapter and the 6th verse, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me." Jesus went on to say in Revelation, the 1st chapter and the 18th verse, "I am He that liveth and was dead. And behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. He didn't leave room for conclusions, Sister Cammie. He didn't leave room that somebody else had to define who He was. He said, I am. We go back in Exodus, and God came unto Moses through the burning bush, and He said, I am that I am. Church, today, what I'm trying to get at with all this is don't let this world define you based off the situations that you are currently living in. Don't define yourself based off the situations that you are currently living in. But as we've been going through our question and answer services on Wednesday night, asking questions, getting Bible answers so that we can give an answer to every man, you need to also have the answer of who you are. That when this world comes knocking, you can say, I am. Without a shadow of a doubt. I don't have to wonder about it. I don't have to question it. I don't have to wonder if it will be tomorrow. But you can say, I am a child of God. I am a child of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And there's nothing you can do to change that. You see, and I hope you don't mind me using you as an example, Brother Chris. But on Friday, Brother Chris could have described himself, defined himself as I am an employee at General Headquarters. But you see, today, Brother Chris can't define himself as being an employee at General Headquarters. Church, life is going to change. Situations in life are going to change. Brother Nick, you may not be an employee of Whirlpool come next week. Sister Cammie, you may not be an employee of Tenova come next week. Brother Rick, we're going to keep working you till you can't be retired anymore. Church, we cannot define ourselves by the things that come and go, by the situations that we are currently living in. But we've got to define ourselves by the one thing that will never change, the one thing that will never leave us nor forsake us. You say, Brother Christopher, there is the possibility of backsliding. Oh, I'm very well aware of that possibility. I'm very well aware that that is a true thing that can happen to any one of us. But I am also very well aware that the Bible says, unto him that has the power to keep you from falling. That is not something that has to happen. It can be prevented. You do not have to fall. You do not have to backslide. You can define yourself by the thing that can never change. And that is, I am a child of God. Through all my studying of the Bible, which admittedly is not as much as it should be. Through all my studying of the Bible, though, I see that Jesus was born in a manger. I see that Jesus came into a young boy, and he borrowed some fish and some bread. And he fed 5,000 plus. I see that he told his disciples to go and to get that little colt, that foal, and bring it to him, that he could borrow it and ride into Jerusalem. I see that Jesus had to borrow a tomb. He didn't have a tomb of his own, but Joseph came along and had a tomb that Jesus borrowed. What does that have to do with who we are today? What I found in all my studying is the fact that there's really nothing that I found that Jesus actually owned. There was nothing that Jesus had that He could say, "This is mine." You see, one of the ways that I can define myself is I'm Christopher Anders, the owner of my house at 207 Goldston Road. Jesus couldn't define Himself that way because He didn't own anything. We don't read that Jesus went into the Walmart and bought him a nice steak. What we do read is there's only one thing that in all of history Jesus ever purchased. And that was you and me. He didn't need a house to define Himself by. He didn't need a lot of land. He didn't need a fancy car. He didn't need a job. He didn't need any of these things. What Jesus defined Himself by is, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And what He purchased to prove that point was so that He could say, I am the King of my children. I am the one who shed my blood for the remission of their sins. I am the one who paid the price so that they don't have to. Church, today, it's not about what you have. It's not about the positions you hold. It's not about the things that you possess. Believe it or not, Sam, come here just a minute. I would lay my life down in a heartbeat for this little boy. Not think twice about it. Not question it. Turn around here, bud. But you see, it's not about I am Samuel David Anders' father. It's about I am a child of the King. Stand with me if you would this morning. Church, the situations that you're going to go through, they're not going to all be easy. I'm just going to tell you. Some of you have had to deal with things that I can never imagine. And believe it or not, I've had to deal with things that you can't imagine. But at the end of the day, who I am is not defined by the things that I've gone through even. You see, Brother Ard could stand up and say today, I'm Herman Ard, once the overseer of the Philippines. I was the world mission coordinator for the Church of God. I was a missionary and I won all these souls to Christ through my ministry. And all those things would be 100% true about Brother Ard. And the truth of it is, the majority of those things, I'm never going to be able to say about myself. But you see, what we can both say is, I'm a child of the King. He shed His blood for me to be saved. And through that, I have been purchased by the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And I am Christopher Anders. Not a nurse, not a pastor, not a father, not a husband, but I am Christopher Anders, a child of the King of Kings, a child of Jesus Christ today. And because I can say that, you see that song this morning that we sang, when we all get to heaven, I can come over and I can stand here and I can put my arm around Brother Hard. And because I can say that we're both child of the King, children of the King, I can say, Brother Hard, when we all get to heaven, because we're going together.
Amen.
And we're going to make it together. Sister Wendy, because we're both children of the King. It's not about the fact that we've both been called. It's not about the fact that we have things that we see and agree on. But it's about the fact this morning, church, that we can say, we have been bought by the blood of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And through that blood, we can be victorious over everything. And through that blood, we can be defined and described, and we can know who we are. This mental health crisis that we're living in, the last time I worked at the hospital, in the ER, it wasn't the COVID ward anymore. It was a change. Thank God, because I was getting burned out on COVID. But you see, it still wasn't the ER that I have worked in so many times before, that someone came off the street, had been in a car accident, and we were providing for their medical care. The last time I worked in the ER, we were flooded with an ER full of people in mental health crises. That can be all brought around because people do not know who they are today. And church, what I'm getting at with this is, if we stand here and we define ourselves based off the situations that we're in, I'll even take it a step farther. If we define ourselves based off the fact that I'm a member of the Church of God, we can find ourselves in the exact same circumstance that these people are in, because all those things, though I'm a member of the Church of God and though my covenant is perpetual, that doesn't stop me from looking and seeing the condition of the church. And at times having questions for myself. And at times questioning the situation and this place the church is in. And simply being a member of the church and defining myself as such can still lead me down a path that I can lose sight of who I am. But if I'll grasp a hold of the fact and never let go that I am a child of the King, it doesn't matter the things around me. It doesn't matter the way, the condition of the church at this moment. I can hold on and never lose myself, because it's not about me anymore. It's about the fact that Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever, is who bought me. That's who I am. Is a child of that King. Church, I didn't preach this message today to question anybody in here's salvation. But I preached this message today because I feel like the Lord is telling us we need to remember who we are. We can get scattered very easily. If at any point in time we forget who we are. But if we'll hold on to the fact that I am a child of the King, purchased by His precious blood, still standing today because He prayed for me, because He is that intercessor for me today, then the things that we care so much about, the things that bother us so much, the things that weigh us down so heavily, they don't matter so much anymore. Because the greatest thing of all is there's no greater privilege and honor than to be a child of the King. The President of the United States ain't got nothing on being a child of the King. Any position that you can ever hold in your life ain't got nothing on being a child of the King. Church, I want us to find a place to pray this morning. And I want us to ask, Lord, remind us who we are. That we can know beyond a shadow of a doubt, we are a child of the King today. Let's find a place to pray.